with our Board of County Commissioner Town Hall. Today's date is April 30th, 2025. The time is 6 p.m. In attendance are Commissioners Eberline, Duncan, and Matari. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No. I'd probably ask to add the pledge.
I'm sorry.
I'd ask to add the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, we can do the Pledge of Allegiance, so we'll get started with that. So let's go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. If I could have everyone stand up. And we'll start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public comment. Would anyone like to make any comments before we actually get started? Anybody on the telephone or online? No? Okay. So before we actually get started, I just have a couple of opening remarks. First of all, thank you so much for coming out tonight and taking time out of your schedule to join us, as well as those who are watching from home. It means a lot to have so many engaged citizens who pay attention to what is happening in their community. Tonight is about learning and discussing policy. It's about engaging in civil discourse and attempting to better understand the policy positions of your elected officials on this board. And it's an opportunity for us to listen to your concerns. There was somebody who posted something on Facebook today. Jonathan, if you could just put that up. Somebody, you got that? Yeah, somebody wrote something, ladies and gentlemen, this contest is scheduled for one fall. Let's get ready to rumble. And then there's a picture of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which I don't think he'll be showing up tonight. I regret to inform this person that the inflatable pools that we were going to use to fill with mud are held up at the port over tariff concerns, so there will be no rumbling tonight. A little further down, Evan Koch, who's the chairman of the Kootenai County Democrats, he wrote, be there, ask when they plan to investigate their sheriff actions at the GOP town hall. Given the fact that there is pending litigation going on with that, I don't think it's we're going to be answering any questions about that unless one of my contemporaries up here would like to, but I don't think it's in the board's interest to be discussing that subject matter. So no rumbling tonight, but I can say that there'll be ample opportunity for you to ask questions and engage in respectful dialogue. And if you want to ask a question, please state your name, who you're asking the question to, and whether or not you are a resident of Kootenai County. And you'll have 1 minute to ask the question, and then an opportunity for a follow-up question, should there be one. In an effort to respect those people who took the time out of their schedule to be here and to watch this, I respectfully ask that you refrain from speaking when others are speaking or speaking out of turn. If you agree with a statement, and this is really, credit should be given to Commissioner Duncan for this. She implemented this in some of our community development meetings. That if you agree with someone who speaks, asks a question, that you raise your hands and don't clap. Don't make a bunch of noise. It gives us an opportunity to move along and get to as many different subjects as possible. And so with that, we also have a couple of sheriff's deputies here. So I guess they'll be listening as well as just keeping things under control if it gets. Yeah, I think we do have the sheriff here sitting back there. And again, so thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for watching. And, this open discussion between us. And with that said, would either of my fellow commissioners like to give any opening remarks or just discuss a topic? I'll let you go first.
Well, I'll actually go first.
You go right ahead, Commissioner.
Mine's very short. So budget season is coming upon us, and as a board, we're always looking for different ways to make things better in the county, save money and things like that. When you talk about employee compensation, we always try to give a step raise each year, but there are other things that go into employee appreciation. And so we've kind of started this debate, and I'd like to hear from the folks here tonight. I have a little board up there, and it says 0, 25, 50, 75, 100. And what certain departments do, and it is kind of all over the board, so I'm just looking for some basic feedback from the public. Some departments spend very, very little on employee appreciation. Other ones spend up to $100 per employee every year on employee appreciation. And it ranges from, giving out a turkey or a ham to straight performance appreciation, like, okay, we have this much work to do and all of the overachievers get, this Christmas bonus kind of thing. So I was just curious as to what the public thinks about employee appreciation. Should we be spending 0 on it? Should we be spending $100 per employee? So I just kind of wanted, if you just take one of those dry erase markers and just put a little hash mark underneath that, please only vote once, underneath what you think is reasonable. I've been both in government and public and private industry, and so we did bonuses with my tiny company based on profits and any extraordinary circumstance. Government sector's different. And so we want to be very mindful and respectful of taxpayer dollars. So I'm just curious, as this poll, as we come into budget season, like everybody thinks, you know what, $50 per person per year is reasonable, 25 is, 0 is, 100, just whatever you think is on your mind. Because again, the labor pool is very short and the county has to provide these services. So we are competing with all the other entities in Kootenai County for our labor. And because we're a monopoly, you can't go anywhere else. Especially since Bonner and Shoshone shut us down for DMV services. We want to make sure that we're providing the best possible service at the lowest cost. So that involves employee compensation and having them feel appreciated, I guess is where I'm going. So with that, just feel free throughout the night before you leave just to put a little hash mark under the number that you feel is appropriate. And it's anonymous, I'm not going to be looking, and the camera shouldn't really be on there, right, Jonathan? But just be honest, because again, we have to provide these services, and so we want to make sure that we are paying attention to employee retention, because in years past, it's been over $9 million that the county has spent on turnover, right? Getting people hired, what that process looks like, training them just for them to leave. So again, it's that balance between using taxpayer dollars wisely and keeping good talent here to serve the public. So that's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you. Commissioner Eberlein, did you want to say anything, or would you like me to go ahead? Okay. So a lot of people think our job is to run the county, and it's not. Our job is to make sure that the county is being run well, And we're presented with some land use decisions. We are the Board of Equalization to ensure that people's properties are correctly valued. And then, of course, our biggest function is we're responsible for the budget. But our primary job is to make sure that the county is running well. And so I'd like to start off by offering some good news and then give you some less than good news. The good news is that the county is very well positioned from a fiscal standpoint. We have enough money to complete our justice building without any issue, complete the jail pods without any issue, even move in the sheriff's patrol office up to Kootenai North without any issue. And we have moved from, and this is before my time, I think the county had about 2 months in reserves. Commissioner Duncan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Eberlein, about 2 months. We're up to about 2.5 right now. And, we may be presented with the question of whether or not we want to have 3 months in reserves. And that's something to be discussed during this upcoming budget season. But the county is in an excellent position. And when you look at other jurisdictions, even some cities, they've had to go into foregone, and that's going into back taxes in previous years that they can collect because of some budget issues, and we are in a much better position. So that's the good news. We also, like Commissioner Duncan said, we have some fantastic staff working within the organization. One of the things I learned a long time ago in business is that the greatest ability you can have is the ability to recognize ability. And we have some very talented and qualified people working inside the county government. And many of these people could get much higher paying jobs in other places, and they choose to stay here. And like Commissioner Duncan, I agree that we want to have an environment that incents quality people to stay, because you get more productivity from high performing people than you do from the low performing. So that is basically the good news, that we're in good financial shape and we have quality staff here. Now, the less than good news. Many of you probably already know we have a very fast-growing crop in Kootenai County. It's called tract housing. And we are growing like a weed. Quite frankly, you drive out onto the prairie, and every time you drive out there, I'm sure many of you kind of go, when did that just get built? Where did that come from? And so the number one driver of your tax growth is your population growth. Idaho is a great state for slow and steady growth at a trajectory that's flatter. But when you have a high trajectory of growth, it just doesn't work as well. And as more people move here, we're going to need more money to widen roads. We're going to need more money to add more classrooms, and we're going to need more money to add more jail beds. It's just the reality. And I have some charts we can go through this stuff, and other services as well. So that is kind of the high cost of growth in our community. And right now, just to complete the 2 empty shells that we have at our jail, it's about $9 million. It should come in a little bit less, but $9 million just to complete an already built shell, 2 shells, and that's for some extra jail beds. Our local airport is seeing more traffic. As a consequence, we're adding a control tower, or we've added a control tower. A lot of people think that if you add a control tower, you're going to get more traffic. No, you add control towers because you're getting so much traffic. It's a safety issue. It's no different than you put up a traffic light at an intersection because it's a safety issue, not because more cars are going to start to drive through the intersection because there's a light. Another issue with our jail is our medical expense. We are on the verge of breaking $3 million in medical expenses to take care of the inmates. We are responsible for taking care of the inmates in our jail. And so those dollars keep incrementally going up each year. They bounce a little bit, but the trend line is going up. And again, that's another consequence of growth. So as a candidate, when I was running for county commissioner, no one came up to me and said, you know, Bruce, what can we do to make Kootenai County grow faster? How can we just put the pedal to the metal and just, you know, build, baby, build, right? No one said that. They kept asking, what can you do to manage the growth? And so I want to talk with you about a couple of those things. The first one is, it really kind of begins with your comp plan. Jonathan, could you put that up? The benefits of our comp plan. And you know, it really is a way for us to kind of develop a guidepost for where we want to be as a community. And the first item on it is that it starts with community input. We get input from you. And if people are saying we don't want to become like the next Seattle, then we should be developing a comp plan that avoids us becoming like the next Seattle. And so that's the first item. Another benefit is that there's property rights protection. There's actually a social contract that comes with those things. You know, just to have a quick history lesson on that, it was Thomas Hobbes back in the 1650s that came up with the concept of a social contract. And John Locke later, about 40 years, discussed that, where the government's duty is to protect life, liberty, and property. And zoning represents a modern, localized social contract where individuals agree to a set of land use rules that limit their absolute freedoms in exchange for predictability, safety, and communal benefit. And by living or owning property in a municipality, we all agree that explicitly or implicitly to abide by the zoning regulations. And it kind of lays out the pathway forward to what we're going to be when we grow up, if you will. A well-structured plan provides clear guidelines and expectations for the land use, thereby protecting the property values and minimizing land use conflicts. Our zoning map, as I've been told, hasn't really been updated since the 70s. And so we're getting these decisions come before us where it's clear that the land should be used for a different purpose compared to what's in the zoning map. But it's not there, and so we end up with these arbitrary decisions that come up to us. We see it, we know we should be doing it, but we really should be looking at the entire county and developing an updated zoning map. The fiscal responsibility and infrastructure efficiency. The comprehensive planning helps governments plan for the infrastructure and public services, as well as a longer-term budget planning, so we can understand. Again, you know, our growth trajectory tells us how easily we're going to be able to manage tax growth. A high growth trajectory, it doesn't pay for itself in this state. A low growth trajectory, it's much easier to maintain a lower tax rate, as well as not have such demands to build the infrastructure so that we can manage to the larger population. Another benefit, and that was number 3, another benefit is preservation of rural and agricultural land. We have to decide if we want to preserve what's remaining as open space, or to what degree we want to try to preserve that. And number 5 is free market stability. The planning offers some certainty into the future of what you can expect, and it really it works better sometimes for developers and investors when they can operate more confidently in the communities, because there's a well-defined and stable land use policy. And then the final one is number 6, disaster preparedness and public safety, and being able to articulate those places where we shouldn't build, whether it's a flood zone or some other, high-risk location. That actually reduces the likelihood of us needing federal aid if there is a disaster, because we've planned it out properly. So those are some of the benefits with the comp plan. Another area where we can address growth is with impact fees. And we have a little slide. I want to show you a couple of slides. As just a show of hands in the audience, how many of you have actually read our impact fee statute? Okay, got a couple in there. To me, it was a wonderful piece of window dressing that was really kind of written by developers for the benefit of developers. It's set up in such a way that you can levy an impact fee for any items that have a useful life of 10 years or more. But when you collect the fee, you have to spend it within 8 years. So the cycles don't line up. And if you don't spend that money within 8 years, then you have to give it back. So for all intents and purposes, it lacks real effectiveness. You can use it for bonds, and you can use it for lease buyback arrangements. But in order to think that you can save up enough money so that we can actually use this money for infrastructure, it's very difficult. You have to grow really fast. I think I did some analysis that we would have to add something like 18,000 homes. This is under the old impact fee analysis, which was lower than the more updated one that we have, and like 21 million square feet of commercial space, which was the equivalent of like 110 Walmarts, in order to actually generate about 15 million in jail impact fee for the next expansion. So I don't think anyone wants to see that kind of growth, and so impact fees can play a role in managing that. If you go on to the next slide, this is the 5-year residential building permit history. This came from KMPO, the data, and it showed that over the 5-year period from 2019 to 2023, that we averaged about 2,261 units per year, 1,447 residential, and about 814 apartment. And those are individual units in an apartment. So it could be a duplex or it could be a 100-unit apartment. Each one counts as one. And then if you go to the next slide.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
Kootenai County, not the county, but all the incorporated cities together?
All the cities, yeah. Yep, so the entire county. And then if you look at the growth projections, we're expected over the next 8.5 years to add another 50,815 residents. Again, this is according to KMPO. Sitting on the KMPO board, I can tell you that there's not enough money to widen all the roads for these additional drivers. Some of the main thoroughfares may see some money. They're putting in a fair amount of money to develop a new exit ramp, an entrance ramp for the 95-90 intersection. They're actually looking at developing something which I think is going to be revisited, where if you exited off I-90, it would actually, you couldn't get onto 95 until it was past Appleway, which was crazy. Yeah, and so they're really trying to make that work appropriately for the right volumes in this community. But the fact is that there is a projection of a lot of growth coming here, and we don't really have the money set aside, to manage to a lot of the infrastructure growth that's going to come in. And then if we move on to the next slide for the jail, and this is only a jail impact fee. If you look at the time since 2019, 4 out of 5 every 5 months, our jail was beyond its operational capacity. Operational capacity is about 80% of the actual physical capacity. So for us, it's 361. Physical capacity is 451. And we've been beyond that 80% of the time. And in fact, it's one of the largest drivers behind why jails in the state of Idaho are failing, is because their inmate population is beyond this operational capacity. Now, we've had several months where we've hit 550 inmates, and we have a physical capacity of 451. So fortunately, with the completion of these jail pods, we're going to have a little bit of breathing room here. But when you start to have too many inmates inside your jail, you get more inmates sleeping on the floor. The likelihood of someone getting injured goes up. That includes a deputy as well, because now they're much more crowded in together. And we pay for that. We as a community pay for those medical services and that liability. And the last thing we want, I think, as a community is that if somebody gets hurt because our jail is overcrowded, we could be facing a consent decree. And that would include paying for additional staff to ensure that we're being compliant. So that, to me, is not a good use of our money, to be in the compliance business. And so trying to stay ahead of these things is really important. The next slide is just a chart that just kind of shows the comparison of our county population with the average or annual average inmates that we have. And so you can see a very high correlation between the county population and our inmate population. I think intuitively we all know that as our population grows, we're going to need more jail space. But this kind of ties that together. Unfortunately, COVID really kind of threw a wrinkle in that, as you can see. But the trend line remains pretty consistent. And then on the last chart, or the last slide, I should say, it just talks about the impact fees that we have and compares it to a couple of other counties. Elmore and Payette are at $1,664 and $1,421 respectively per single family unit. And then for every 1,000 square feet of retail space, it's $3,254 and $3,287. We came in at $1,228 with our study, and we emulated the Payette County methodology. Before that, we were at about $500 and some change on a single family home. And then, of course, with real estate, retail space, $1,425 for every 1,000 square feet, which is significantly more than what we had before. We still have not been able to implement this impact fee. We've been talking with the mayors about this for the last year and a half. And initially, and I give credit to the city attorney in Rathdrum, she really found some flaws in the methodology. This is an untested methodology in the court of law. I think the city of Hayden at one point imposed an impact fee, and they were sued and lost and had to give that money back. It was all for naught. So we decided as a board to emulate the methodology that Payette County used, and that city attorney at this point, I think, knock on wood, is pretty good with what we've come up with. But it doesn't work unless every city agrees to capture this fee for us when they issue a building permit. And so that's where we are right now. We do have one little issue that we've been working, hopefully it'll be behind us soon, is the lawsuit between our treasurer and some of the cities up here over some late fees and interest, penalties and interest fees. But getting just this one fee implemented is almost a Herculean task. For the cities, it's much easier because it's within their jurisdiction, but the counties have to get all the cities to kind of agree. And I wish it wasn't written this way in the statute. I wish it was written that if the counties impose or implement an impact fee, the cities shall collect that money as opposed to may collect it. So that's the second item on growth. And then the third one is open space. And one of the things about open space, and I know there's some controversy with it, is that you really have to look at the total overall tax impact to development. It's not just the county. It's also the highway districts, the school districts, and other districts. And so if you look at the open space side of it, you don't need additional classrooms for open space. You don't need to widen more roads with open space, and you don't need more jail beds with open space. And we came up, I think, what was it, about $30, $40, $45 per $500,000 home would be the increase if we took the full $50 million in that bond, about $45 a year, yeah, would be the increase or the impact on your county taxes. And in exchange for that, any land that the county bought using those funds could never be developed, never, ever developed. And they wouldn't be used for the fairgrounds. They couldn't be used for anything than open space for the county residents to enjoy into the long foreseeable future. And so that, to me, is a conservative principle of keeping our taxes lower by not developing every parcel of land that we possibly can. If the county owns this open space land, it'll never be annexed into a city. It'll never be developed. And for county residents, that keeps your taxes lower in the long run because you'll need less classrooms, less widening of the roads. So Commissioner Duncan, yeah, do you have something you wanted to add to that?
Sure. So when you're talking about open space, remember Central Park in New York, remember Riverfront. I always get these wrong because we have Riverstone here, not Riverside where I came from, but Riverfront Park in Spokane, right? Those are, New York and Spokane are two examples of the government coming together or the community, right, and putting those things aside. And I think that it's really something that the community has to think about and talk about if we really want something like that in our community. And I think it's beneficial. When people would call me when we ran the open space, they would say, you know, what's the deal? I said, well, your taxes are going to go up for the open space, but your taxes are going to go up if houses are built there, because growth just doesn't pay for itself unless it's all commercial. So commercial, we have a problem because we don't have the labor supply here. So it's one of those things where if you're not building houses along with the commercial, then you don't have people to work in the commercial doesn't come here. It's a very touchy ecosystem. So again, going forward, I would just ask that you consider, what would it be like to have a Central Park here? What would it be like to have a Riverfront Park here? So just keep those things in mind.
And it's a good way to help keep your taxes grow at a slower rate. because of the growth. Again, it changes that trajectory of growth. And we just have to decide, do we want to have a very high-density model or a low-density model? I haven't met anyone who relocated here and wants a high-density model, and we have to make a decision at some point what we're going to do, what direction, and I think now is that inflection point for us to think about that. If the citizens of this community want high density, then, they should have it. But if they don't, this is the way you address it.
And I'll just add to that too. Obviously, much of the growth happens in the cities, and the county has no jurisdiction over how many units the cities can do, and the county actually cannot prevent the city from annexing property either. So it's great that we'd like to work alongside the cities to say, hey, in general, work with the county to see what we'd like to look like in the future. But the cities really have to cooperate in that. Otherwise, the county just continues to shrink, and our comp plan can be solid, but without cooperation of cities, then we really don't have a lot of authority in that area.
Mm-hmm. And just when it comes to annexing the land, that's between the property owner and the city. The county plays no role, like Commissioner Duncan said, in that equation. And the county's current comp plan is 5-acre minimum lot sizes for the most part. There's
rural,
some, we have, I think we have restricted residential, which is almost like an oxymoron because that allows for eight homes per acre?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have my cheat
But
sheet in front
it's
of me.
very high density. And strangely enough, it's in some of the most pristine places in the county along lakes and so forth, where we have a really high density jurisdiction. But does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask on this subject?
You can come right up to the microphone.
Don't be that easy.
Can I take my turn now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. I like going down rabbit holes.
Microphone.
I find them very interesting. And so at my leisure in the last few years, I had lots of time to be looking around and snooping and see what's going on in politics and what's the latest trends and all that kind of stuff. And I found this article in the Coeur d'Alene Press with Kay Thornbrew. Is that how it's pronounced? You got it. Hey, right on. Is that you? That's me. Good. I'm glad to hear that. So we had some hospital issues, if you recall. And Kootenai Health CEO John Ness, he was happy as a clam to have a 501c3. Do anybody in this room know what a 501c3 is? Yes, you're very informed, and it's not good for the populace. It's good for the bureaucrats. And so I read over here, by converting to a nonprofit, Kootenai Health gives us taxing authority, sovereign immunity, and power of eminent domain. Kootenai Health will no longer be bound by open meeting, public disclosure requirements such as we are, which some trustees said are a disadvantage in the competitive market the hospital operates in. And then further down, future board members will be appointed rather than elected, which means you do not get to pick your choice of who's going to represent you, period. Is that a democracy? There is no such a democracy. Is a bad thing. It's a mob rule. That's in the definition, it's a mob rule. And so here we've created mob rule. So I'm not known for smooth, suave instances. I just spelled it out, and so that's what I'm gonna do. Is that all right with you? Okay, so in my opinion, the transit system of today was made possible by the demise of Kootenai Health, formerly a hospital that belonged to the people of Kootenai County. As such, the demise of the People's Hospital succumbed to a clever tactic a pair of southern Idaho legislators implemented. And that's where he comes in with a 501c3. And those two sly guys down there, they put this across, and it had never happened ever. And so they put it on. And if somebody's got the wherewithal, go down and talk to your legislators and repeal that ability. What fate will our beloved hospital, Kootenai Hospital, suffer? Will it be solvent for future generations, or will mergers and acquisitions spell doom? The 501c3 rule allows the private nonprofit 7-member Kootenai Health Board of Directors to select their board in entirety without public input or voter input or anything else. You get nothing. Mum is the word. The days of voting for your favorite hospital board member, no longer. With some 180,000 inhabitants in Kootenai County scattered out, many have no way to get to services. In my opinion, the transit is the least frugal means of providing transportation. Ubers were suggested back in the day over bureaucracy. Evidently, the bureaucrats didn't like that, and they thought they would be pushed out. The flexibility of Ubers and private transportation beats out bureaucracy and at lower cost to anywhere a vehicle can go. Buses and such do not have flexibility. Bureaucracy thrives on big government. Mark Eberline, Kootenai County Commissioner, District 1. Thank you for listening. I don't know what else to say. If you have some questions, if I could answer them. But this has been eating on my mind for a long, long time.
Would anyone like to come up and ask a question? Just please, if you could state your name and to whom you want to ask the question, and if you're a county resident.
Yeah, I'm a county resident. I'm Joel Noland. And I just want to know, what was the governance like, or the structure entity before that?
Hospital board members were elected.
Was the hospital, was it its own
It was just
entity, or was it like
it's been there for years. How old is that hospital? 74, and it operated as a down home country kind of a place.
Was it an LLC, or was it kind of more of a pseudo government?
It was just I don't know what the form of government was.
It was a taxing district.
Yeah, it's a hospital
Yeah,
district,
yeah.
yes.
And the people paid to have that thing built, and
Yeah.
we're sucking time. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Everett. For Commissioner Matari?
Yes.
I would say that I'm a big fan. I'm a naturopathic physician here, licensed in the county and in the state, and big fan of open space. Partly, I think you make a good argument for the taxing side of stuff, because I think you probably would have the trajectory of taxes, it seems like, would outpace the fixed amount from a purchase like that. But also like the health and psychology of having an open space where people can go to that maybe can't afford a lakefront property or something, so they can get a little infinity view, is actually a big factor too, I think.
You're absolutely right.
So.
And there's studies that show that people are overall, they're generally happier with more space around them. Mm-hmm. That if you've come from a big city like Seattle or New York or Chicago, and you're just bumping into people on the sidewalk, it can be frustrating. And you lose some of that charm that comes with having space and saying hi to people. You become less concerned about those around you when you're constantly bumping into them all the time.
For sure. Yeah. So I mean, I love the idea. Just I guess figuring out the details on how to do it. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. If you have questions, you can just line up behind the person and ask your questions.
My name's Mary Veer. I'm a Kootenai County resident. My questions concern the fairgrounds. I support the fair and the fairgrounds, and I was really pleased when the commissioners and the fair leadership were able to come to an agreement to secure the fairgrounds' future. But I've heard some rumors lately that the fair board must now come to the commissioners before they schedule events and activities at the fairgrounds. And I've also heard that this is the first step for removing the fair board and in laying groundwork towards having the fairground property sold. This question isn't addressed to anyone specifically, so if there's any one of you could address those rumors, I would appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
do you want to? Yeah,
Sure.
go for it.
2 words, fake news, first of all. Okay? So I don't know where people, why they don't have better things to do, like volunteer at an orphanage or for homeless people or something, than to make up crazy things. So 99% of what the Board of County Commissioners does is have to operate within the law. And so some things have been brought to our attention that we want to make sure that we are following the law. And we're going to do it in a manner that protects the fair operations and the Board of County Commissioners in our duties. So there's nothing been decided whatsoever. There's just talk about how we can satisfy the law and protect the fair operation. So until we can have further conversation, which we're trying to have them almost weekly, except when we're out of town, to try to get things to move forward in a manner that, satisfies both.
You come back up and you can ask your follow-up. And then Commissioner Eberline, did you want to add to any of that?
I would.
Okay.
Could you tell us what laws you're referring to? You just state generically laws to protect the fair and laws to protect the Board of Commissioners. Fair enough. Could you specifically reference what laws those are?
So unfortunately, some of it is executive session stuff. But if you just look, Idaho code's pretty specific. The fair board can operate the fair. And then the Hansen, there's a Hansen case out there, case law, that talks about different duties and aspect of the Board of County Commissioners regarding the fair property during non-fair times. So unfortunately, we can't be more specific, but in the future, it'll be a public process if there's anything that's, I don't know, what would you say? Again, we're trying to do the best we can to follow the law and not change the way things are going right now.
I think that it might help to know that because of where the fair's at, it has a threshold at 180,000 people in the county, and we have to go up, and so we would have to have 200,000 people.
200,000.
And so the state of Idaho and the legislators down there are probably not playing too nicely with us, and they're hoping that we're going to roll over.
So thank you actually for bringing up, we're actually looking at legislation to be passed so we don't have conflicts in this manner. So the legislation we're looking at would do away with the potential of changing the operation. We're looking at passing legislation, not being very articulate right now, looking at passing legislation to mirror how Kootenai County is operating. Does that make sense? Kootenai County is operating in a certain way. I'd like to pass legislation to make it very clear that that is good and acceptable.
Yeah, go ahead,
And if
Commissioner.
somebody's going to try that stunt and take away our fairgrounds, it'll be over my dead body. That's a promise.
If I could, since I've been a commissioner, I've heard all kinds of rumors about the fair, and quite frankly, I have no idea, like Commissioner Duncan, where the genesis is for some of these rumors. With respect to the law, the fact is that Idaho is, it's not, well, it's been a rural state for a long time, and the statutes have been written. Some of them are well over 100 years. In this particular situation, I think it's just under 100 years. And there's conflicts. And the interpretation of a statute might be in conflict of other standard practices which have come into play since that statute was written. I see where there are some issues that we have to look at. One of the because of the nature of the issue, it's intricate. The fair has engaged in some practices that have been to the benefit of the community. It's fully self-sufficient. There were many years where the fair drew money, taxpayer money, to subsidize. Most fairs don't make a profit. And so this county, among many other counties, more than half in the state, have done some things so that they don't burden the property taxpayer to subsidize the fairs. And as a consequence of that, if you read the black letter law of the statute, you can look at it from one position on a prism, and you can see that something isn't right. You turn the prism a little bit more, and things, you get a different perspective out of it. And so it's something we're working on. Another area where the fix may be is in Boise, because it has such a ripple effect throughout the state. It affects so many different counties. So, my personal perspective on things like that is to operate slowly. Don't make knee-jerk reaction decisions and have these unintended consequences, like Commissioner Eberlein said with respect to that statute, where public hospitals can convert to 501c3 charity hospitals. That was meant to get a hospital out of a pickle down south, and now it's being used as a method so that hospital boards or hospital management can take away the public's control of their local hospital and turn it into a private hospital, which a 501c3 is a private entity, and install their own board.
Kootenai County, Kootenai Health was the first one to get it.
Yeah, and no, there's another one that actually down south.
Yeah.
But that's the unintended consequence of poorly crafted legislation. And so there's times to make quick decisions, and there's times that you want to make slow decisions. And just my personal belief on this, and it really comes down to what this board decides, is that this particular issue, we want to take it a little bit slower, just to make sure we make the right decision and that we don't have any unintended consequences.
May I make a comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does anybody know what C4 is? The explosive C4? Do you know what 501c3 equals in this realm? Boom! It blows everything up. Never forget.
So hopefully that answers your question on the fair to your satisfaction. And we have the next person who wants to ask a question. Come on up.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Hartman. I live in the southern part of the county. We're all familiar with the success that Elon Musk has had with Doge. And in the Coeur d'Alene Press Saturday, April 12th issue on the front page, they pointed out that the Idaho GOP leaders announced a new Doge task force for Idaho, the state. They're going to focus on 3 areas for the state Doge. First one is government agency consolidation. Sounds like a good one. Second one is government employee travel on waste and travel. And the third one, eliminating unnecessary state government employee positions. So that's what the state's doing. I think in the spirit of this, since all 3 of you claim to be conservative Republicans, that I think it would be great to see that you agree that we ought to have a task force of Doge at the county. I'd like to hear from all 3 of you.
Who would like to start first?
I don't even know what Doge is. The dog that's got a hair lip?
I can start. So,
Country boy, you know?
yeah. Actually, since Commissioner Matari came on board, we actually have stopped funding some community partners that tax dollars shouldn't have been going towards. So I think as a mindset, at least, Commissioner Matari and I, we haven't been through the budget process with Commissioner Eberline yet, but that has been one of our focuses, is to look at what do we have to provide statutorily and what can we do without. And again, we've, I don't know if it was 23 or 24, but we talked about, obviously we support our employees, but we are also looking at technology in a way to leverage that. Because again, our labor shortage causes some problems. So if we're able to use technology so we don't have to fill those open positions. Before the public defenders left, we were averaging 100 to 130 open positions countywide. So that puts kind of a hardship on our existing employees. So I think we've kind of already been operating that, not calling it that.
Yes, and also I would like to, I have some slides that we can show because, one of the challenges here is the fact that when I came on board as a county commissioner, people would ask department heads, other electeds would say, I need 2 more staff members because we're just overwhelmed. And I kept asking myself, well, why are you telling me this? How come you're not showing me? Because in the private sector, you have to generate reports, metrics. You want to understand how your business operates and where, and make sure that you are running efficiently. So we had this situation where community development asked for a couple of additional staff members. And we had a very long turnaround when it came to our building permits. And so I sat down with our community development department and a couple other folks. I think our assessor might have been there as well. And can you put up the CD?
Whiteboard.
The whiteboard, the dry marker one, yeah. So we mapped out. I sat down with them and we mapped out, we flow charted what was going on with our community development and how a permit was managed. And when it got sent back to a customer or an applicant. And what we discovered was that there was this loop of the permit going back and forth between the department and the applicant. And it was creating all this work. And then we ended up having planners being overpaid customer service agents working with our applicants, right? And so we mapped it all out on the dry marker board, and then we want to go to the next image. Then we put it on paper and just kind of flow charted it, and we wanted to develop reports. And so those little green lines are events that you want to capture with a date and a time. So when something leaves one box and goes to the next box, that's how you develop reports and metrics. And then if you want to go to the next one, which is the next file, the CD time reductions. And what we were able to do, and we just kind of compared the time frames of 1/1/24 to 4/8/24, and then the same time period this year, we have compressed our turnaround times dramatically. We've shortened the turnaround time. In fact, on a particular permit, it was taking us close to 90 days when that permit was initially applied for until they got approval. And we've reduced that down to, I think, as little as 18 or 19 days. 19 days. So, as a consequence of that, our community development department has combined 2 positions into 1 position. And for FY26 budget, they plan on asking to reduce a position out of their department, because now we're starting to look at metrics in that department. How long does it take in each department within community development for this application to go through? And so that is probably the biggest, lowest hanging fruit in county government right now, is that the Board of County Commissioners hears what the other electeds and department heads need, but they don't show us what they need through reports. And if they could show us, guess what? They could show you. And when you see what we see, you'll understand much more intuitively why we make the decisions that we make. And so that is really our equivalent of Doge. We don't give money really for, the study of mating habits of salamanders or, any of those kind of things that don't really affect the community here as much. But, when it comes to developing these operational efficiencies, that's where the lowest hanging fruit is.
I just have one thing to add to that. We actually added a position in community development, a very high-level position, but that was necessary to make the rest of the function happen. So by adding that one high-level position, it looks like we're going to be able to get rid of 2 positions. And so it was necessary to do that. Not just positions when you're talking about, but you're talking better customer service. Going from 3 months to 19 days is huge, especially with our very short construction season. Yeah. So it's, I thank Commissioner Matari for going after that, and I think we've seen some excellent results.
Yeah, and the other thing too, and this is really just a consequence of, promoting, especially from within, is that when it comes to running a department, that's a managerial skill set. Then there's the trade skill set. So you can be a great planner, great community development planner, but not necessarily a great manager. And you can be a great manager, but not necessarily have technical expertise in the department that you're managing. And so that's what we discovered, is that to have the director focused on our comp plan, focused on the strategy that the community development department, where it should be going, what it should be doing for this community, and having an operations person actually looking at how things are running inside the organization, managing the staffing issues, all those little things that just gobble up time, so much time that it's hard for you to be thinking about the bigger picture. And so, yeah, that we did that, and I think it's paying off well. But it's certainly, it may not be saving as much money as we would like. I'd love for it to save, 20, 30, 40%. But what it
be self-sufficient, meaning that the fees they bring in, the taxpayers are not going to be subsidizing that. So for me, I'm okay with having as many people we need to get the job done when it's fee supported. And it's, Kootenai County loves our land here. So it's that making sure that we can provide, again, the best possible service at the lowest cost, and using fees instead of taxpayer subsidies to do those services.
Commissioner Eberline, did you want to add to that?
Well, there is another way around that, but we'll pass on that for today.
Okay. Okay.
Commissioner Matari, that was an excellent example that you did, but that's one department. How about looking at all the rest of them?
Well, some of the departments, like our solid waste department, the gentleman running that is just solid on numbers and runs a very tight ship. The other departments, believe it or not, the major ones are the elected officials. And, so we can only inspire. We can't, do anything other than that. But my hope is that, and we started this last August. So it really hasn't had enough time to really kind of gel within the organization. But it is something that I do hope the other electeds, because I know if you're going to come before this board, and I'm on it, I'm going to ask for you to show me, and not tell me what you need, but show me. Develop metrics, show a report that says this is our workload per employee in this department, and I need to add another because the workload has just been going up year over year.
One more comment, though. I've seen some of the organization charts, and they're extremely vertical. It looks to me that a lot of these organization charts of these departments could be flattened out a lot, and that will also improve efficiency. I saw one that it was 100% vertical. It was all managers, and at the bottom was one Indian.
Okay.
I can't remember which department.
Are you addressing this to me or any other particular?
Any of the three of you in
Why
general.
Why don't you come up and show us sometime? I'd like to see that.
All right. I think I need to give up the mic.
All right.
I could keep going, but I'm going to stop.
You can come back after everyone else has asked.
Good evening, Mariana Cochran, county resident. So I have actually two questions following up on two different topics. So easy one first. So Commissioner Duncan, you mentioned about the gifts, the annual bonuses. So I think that's a fun idea. I remember early on in my career, some company I worked for, we got a Christmas turkey and then it migrated to a gift coupon. So that's sweet. No, I would argue that any employee who stays on the job for that is probably a turkey themselves. So I would, however, and that's why I'm not going to the board, I would, however, wholly support any type of incentive program that you all created that was merit-based. I don't know how much it would cost. I'd leave that up to you. I mean, Commissioner Matari, every time I hear you talk, you always talk about metrics. So kudos to you for that. So that kind of inclination where you tie performance to results and then give rewards, I'm all in on that, up to a reasonable dollar amount, and I'm sure you figure that out. So that's my opinion about that. And then on to the bigger issue about the open space. I don't think anybody would argue about the enjoyment that we all get from open space. I'm all in for that. I live in Rathdrum. I have to drive by the prairie, and it's just sickening to see it all being built up with track houses, as you said, Commissioner Matari. So my sense is from you, I get it, this would be something that would go out to the vote. My sense is from you, listening to you, that you're leaning in that direction, a la some type of bond issue. That's what I'm intuiting from what you're saying. My question is, and again, you mentioned, trajectory more than once. Well, growth trajectory, again, nothing would likely happen to that growth trajectory if we adopted open space. Therefore, would one of the unintended consequences be that we would then have more dense housing, a la that big, was it 3-level that just went up on, was Lancaster? That, big, I don't know if it's apartments or condos or whatever. We're just going to see more of those. So I'm not arguing with the idea of open space, and I'd probably vote for it, including a bond issue. But that's what I'm wondering is going to be a side effect that maybe we won't like that result either.
You bring up a good point, but the reality is that kind of density occurs in the cities. And we're seeing that in Coeur d'Alene, right? If you look at over time, what's going on today, high rise.
I'll give you an example where it's
Yeah.
occurring in Rathdrum.
Yeah, that's right. So the question is, for the county resident who lives in the unincorporated part, the more that we can prevent that additional development, the lower the density will be for the county resident, and hopefully the lower the demand on services.
But that's where I'm not following you. When you say, I don't get how those are correlated. You have more open space, therefore you get lower density. No, just the density just gets more compacted and goes up.
Well, that's assuming that that's what people want too. As long as there's open space, it's easy to develop it with the tract housing. It's much easier. And as a board, there's really no reason for us to say no to people who want to buy farm fields and develop in the county 5-acre minimum lot sizes. There's nothing that really we could say no to that for.
I just did it across the street from where I live. And I'm watching the houses go up now. So I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying I get it.
Yeah, because that's the way our comp plan is set up. So the question is, do you want to have that open space? And if not, you're going to have a complete suburban sprawl.
And I'll add to that, the consequence of not as much growth is the housing prices go up. So with high demand, not enough inventory, the housing prices go up. So it's harder for our young people and our service industry to afford homes here when you talk about restricting growth. So again, it's a delicate ecosystem about keeping our way of life and providing for, what has to naturally come. I mean, we have to have certain workers, right, to make the county function, not just Kootenai County government, but the entire county. So, people want to go to downtown Coeur d'Alene and eat, and how many servers can afford, a $500,000 home? So it's one of those no easy answer, but I think that we all want to protect our way of life, and And that's why we have to continue to have the conversation to make sure that we're hitting all the bases.
But I would like to see the bond initiative back on the ballot. The problem is that public money can't be used to advocate for or against something. And so it really, the best chance for it is if there are some citizens that want to get together and try to raise some money to advocate for it if that's what they want, and to get the word out. I know every time I spoke in front of large groups, and once they understood what the bond was about and what it would do, they, some of the biggest pessimists of it became advocates for it. So, and we really weren't that far off with really zero marketing. I think it was like right around 50%. We need 2/3, but I don't think that's a heavy lift if the community can really understand the benefits of that open space from a health perspective, like what was mentioned before, but also a fiscal perspective, the fact that it doesn't require this additional infrastructure. As far as building up, if people want to live here and the cities want to allow for that, then that's what's going to happen. But that at least can be addressed with city councils.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Bela Kovacs. I am a resident of Kootenai County. Commissioners, the topic of open space drew my attention. And so I have a few questions about that. But before I ask my questions of you, maybe I'd like to see a show of hands from the people in the audience. How many people are in favor of an open space, of the concept that was being described? Okay. I came to Kootenai County for pretty much the same reasons that pretty much everybody else did. It's a beautiful place to live. It's a small town feel. I love it. But the work that I do, I'm very much interested in the value of homes. And how many people have heard of a little place called Phoenix, Arizona? It's not little. I was born and raised there. And on the north side of Phoenix, there's a little place called the North Mountain Phoenix Reserves. And it's 41,000 acres. Now, being born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, I moved away in 1989. Phoenix is the nation's 5th largest metropolitan area. I don't believe that 41,000 acres of free space slowed growth in Phoenix. It is 120 miles from one side of the city to the other. It's spread out. Now, I like open space as much as anybody else, but I would ask the board to consider supply and demand. And if you're going to lock up space and restrict development, you're going to restrict supply. And I think you're going to see an upward pressure on the value of homes. Just consider that.
Okay.
And one last thing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You're absolutely right when it comes to supply and demand. But the fact is that it's what people who live here should want. I've heard elected officials say, we need to build more because more people want to move here. Well, what about the people who live here? Don't they have a say in what this community should look like? So, market forces shouldn't be the driver of everything. As individuals in this community, we are not economic units. It's the way we live. And so, the point that I'm trying to get to is that if people want to live a certain way, they want a certain amount of density, then the elected officials should listen to them. If the people want high rises like Manhattan, give them high rises. But the fact is that whatever happened in Phoenix, that could happen here, right? But if people elect people into positions like ours, and we run on that policy of less density, then we should be delivering that to what people want.
Well, and I'm not disputing that. All I'm saying, Commissioners, is consider those factors. If you're talking about open space that's out on the prairie that's flat, and it's great to go out and fly a kite and sit in a grass field. I mean, I don't know how attractive that's going to be as compared to a mountain preserve or something like that. Like I said, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. I spent many, many summers running around catching rattlesnakes and Gila monsters in the North Mountain Phoenix preserves. I love open space. I think we all love it. I think you've got to be careful in terms of how you apply it. And so I just want to throw that out there for you. Food for thought.
Did either of you want to address any of that, or no? Okay.
How can you address that? You're gonna put land out there, they don't make land anymore, it's already there. And so wherever you're gonna build at, you're gonna build.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm actually from Bonner County, so I'm upstream, though I consider us downstream, so to speak. So this is great information. I appreciate this event tonight. So a question for Commissioner Mark and also Commissioner Bruce. So for the data for the projected growth, you quoted source data, but do you know where they pulled that from, that data that you quoted on the slide?
That was from the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization, the KMPO. That was their projections.
Okay, do you know where this is just an honest question.
No,
do you know where they pulled that?
I don't know.
Okay. So growth can happen organically, but I would like to think most people, as an adult, if we're having an adult conversation, growth can also happen through orchestration. Okay, set variables that are put into motion. So anytime you go to source data, I ask myself the question, what do they possibly know that doesn't make sense that they could really know? Okay, so for example, how would they know who moves where when? Now, they could be modeling it on historical data, that's great, but in recent history, COVID, people were fleeing Washington and Oregon and California in droves, okay, due to the lockdowns. So that is, it's an influx of variables driving the data, okay? So I think just modeling and knowing your data is really important. Commissioner Bruce, you mentioned annexing, and I wanted to mention that Bozeman, I'm glad you brought it up, it's important. So Bozeman, for example, went from 1,500 acres to just under 15,000 acres due to annexation alone. So when you combine annexation with the power of eminent domain, this can blow growth out of the water. And eminent domain can be exercised by various governmental entities on a state, county, and city level. So this also is to be factored in into the data, okay? If I may shift to Commissioner Mark, and thank you for bringing up the transit. I wanted to get your opinion on Spokane pilot program that's slotted for 2025 called Moving Forward. And it wants to put transit from Spokane directly into Coeur d'Alene and back along the I-90 corridor. The reason for this program, they say, is for mobility, transportation, equity, health, and safety. Do you have any comments about this?
I think they ought to get their electric buses fixed before they start messing around with more buses.
Yeah, and it would be a partnership between Idaho and Washington.
I don't want a partnership between Idaho and Washington.
Yeah.
Not only no, but
Yeah.
hell no.
So it's more of a comment than a question. I thought you would weigh in on that. Just ironically, yeah, go ahead.
Good friends that work on the transit system in Spokane, and they're having
Yeah.
nothing but difficulties.
Yeah.
And it's a nightmare for them.
Yeah, well, when you read it on Google AI that it's for the sake of health and safe transportation, it's important to look at the data between crime, violent crime, including assaults, theft, and more, based on mass transit and crime. It's just interesting data to factor in as well. So source data, I guess that's my key takeaway. Thank you.
And I'll just add to that, because another rumor, absolutely not am I ever in favor of connecting our city link with Spokane. No, I like the size of our city link right now. And if it is serving the community, then I don't see any reason for it to grow as well. So maintain status quo. Do not connect with Spokane ever, ever, ever. You want to talk about giving up our lifestyle, quality of life, and the way our community looks, definitely that would be an issue, so.
Yeah, come on up.
Commissioners, thank you very much for putting this on. I really appreciate it. Brent Regan, I've been a Kootenai County taxpayer for over 30 years. The only constant is change. And to illustrate that, when I first came here, I bought 80 acres up off of Remington Road by Athol. I paid $32,000 for it. So, yeah, things have moved a lot since then. I had actually three things I want to talk to. One of them was the regional transit district and connecting. If you did in fact connect with Spokane, that would cure the growth problem because the crime would drive the people away, and we wouldn't have to worry about property values or growth growing out of proportion. As I was here listening to you about the open space, it occurred to me that the problem is if the county buys the open space, it comes off the tax roll, and now you've got this maintenance thing that you've got to take care of, unless it's going to just be a big weedy field for the next forever. You have eminent domain, and you have the power to change zoning. Why don't you just zone it so it's a 50-acre minimum? Single family with an auxiliary unit, you can't have an agricultural exemption, and you put a deed restriction on it so it can't be annexed in the county. Now you're preserving the open space, but you can have private ownership to go in there and maintain it and pay property taxes on it.
Could we do that to that property you purchased in Athol?
Not anymore,
Yeah.
but I'd like to.
Yeah, yeah. We've looked at rezoning down south on the reservation, and a lot of people were not particularly pleased about taking something that they could subdivide at 5 acres and reducing that to 10-acre or higher lot size restrictions. So they see that as a takings, even though I'm not so sure that would.
And I agree, and
Yeah.
that's why you have to do it under eminent domain and compensate the landowner for the loss and value of that. But it's either that or buy it, spend however many $1 million in buying it, and now you're stuck owning it. And you have to maintain it and take care of it and do fire mitigation. And it's an ongoing cost for the county without the benefit of any kind of tax revenue. So I don't know if there's a way in between there. The other one was, I do remember a time when we did have impact fees. And they were removed because they saw no difference between the mom and pa who had 10 acres and wanted to split 5 off for a child or whatever, to the developer that comes in and puts 1,000 units in. And so if you wanted to divide your property, you were a developer, period. So if you are going to come up with regulations for any kind of impact fees, I would ask that you take into consideration the residents that are already here that might have 5 or 10 or 15 acres and they want to split off a little bit for a child or just so they can pay their taxes and provide for that as a different kind of developer to allow for that kind of thing to happen. Yeah, so regional transit and those were my two suggestions or comments, and again, to thank you for having this tonight.
If I could, you bring up a point with the fire districts are doing that, where people want to just put up a pole barn and it's thousands of dollars in impact fee for them to put up a pole barn on their property that they already live on. And I totally understand that. And, it is a challenge. I don't ever see us really effectively getting the impact fee imposed just because of the nature of having to get all the cities to agree. But I wish that the state would come up with something that worked a little better and took those things into account.
Well, I mean, we have infrastructure that supports a certain load.
Yes.
And driving down Highway 95 coming out of the 90 interchange will tell you that that's saturated.
Mm-hmm.
If you're waiting 2 or 3 lights to go through, although if you do want a sanity check, you go down to California and spend 10 minutes down there and you come back here and the traffic doesn't seem so bad anymore.
That's a form of therapy, yes.
It is. But if you can have, the impact fees in order to properly compensate for the infrastructure that has to be added, the fire, the roads, the water, the sewer, and so forth, that impact for 1,000 units or 100-unit large-scale developer is significant, and is easy to capture when, little mom and pa decides that they want to put a ADU on their property for grandma. That is a much lower impact in the sewer and the water and cars and everything else. So just when you're looking at it, it's not a linear relationship. There's a certain amount that should be given a pass, and then beyond that, then the fees start cutting in.
I think that's the challenge, is that we have to come up with a methodology that can withstand legal scrutiny.
Yeah.
And nothing has been tested yet with this impact fee statute. So,
Well, it's the old problem, don't tax me, tax the man behind the tree. You want to tax a developer that's not the resident here, who wants to come in, make their money, and get out of town.
Yeah, so there's an equal protection issue, and the other, I've had people say to me, hey, you're in Idaho, born and bred, and you want to develop, go ahead. You're from out of state, then that's it. Your fees are double, and I wish we could do that, because again, their lifestyle is not going to be affected by what they're doing here. As far as the open space and the changing the zoning, what we found with the reservation issue was that people, even though they never planned, we had 200 acres, we had thousands of acres, and the people were completely against it, but they never planned to divide. Then you also had, oh shoot, I'm not going to lose it. Oh, you had somebody who fought for it, who absolutely said, I'm in favor, I'm in favor, I'm in favor, and they opted out. So.
Well, the ability to divide a parcel is, even if you have no intent of doing it, brings value to the parcel.
Right.
So even if I have property that I could divide and I have no intent of doing it because, but I wouldn't want that right taken away.
Right.
So if somebody tried to take it away, I'd want to be fairly compensated for it.
Yeah, so that's just been our experience, because that seems like a great idea. Okay, the prairie that's in the unincorporated area, now it's, 50 acre per thing, but I don't see how we can get that. That would not pass. You would have to have all voluntary people, and they're just not going to do it.
Change is inevitable. Yeah. Things are going to change. It's the rate of change that causes the problem. Rapid change makes it difficult to compensate for, and not planning for the change makes things difficult. Trying to plan the change is difficult.
Yep.
But we were talking about the fair earlier. Well, the Fairgrounds used to be the airport. That big arch building, the building number 1, is a hangar that's left over from those days. So, things do change. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
come on up.
Okay, my name is John Lee. I'm a Post Falls resident. So I thought about a solution for the jail overcrowding. I thought when I was in Arizona, I wasn't very impressed with the sheriff. Joe Arpaio built a tent city jail. Why not instead of, if we have an overcrowding problem, how about let's put them outside? If you don't want to sleep outside, then stop doing the crime in the first place. And tell these criminals that are coming from Washington, hey, get out of my state if you're going to break the law. Take it elsewhere.
We'll pass that along to the sheriff.
Sounds like a plan.
I can't top that one. I'm of the belief that if I'm taxed for something, I should receive something in return, a service. I also am the belief of the people receiving the service need to pay for it. And if the people receiving the service don't want to pay for it, then the service should be stopped. The topic, transit. Everybody that's a property owner in this county pays for that service. The only people that receive that service are the city of Coeur d'Alene, the city of Post Falls, the city of Hayden, Kootenai Health Hospital, and the Coeur d'Alene tribe. And yet there's still a bill to be picked up after they drop their coins in the tin cup. And that's the rest of us that don't receive the service. So the county manages the transit system. They manage the grants. They manage buying and doing the maintenance on the buses. They buy the buses. They pay the payroll. But not all of us in the county are receiving this service. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I don't think that's a very fair way to tax and provide a service. So if the people that receive the service don't want to pay the bill, like the mayors of the cities that can hear this, then the service needs to be terminated.
Who would like to
Question.
answer that?
I have a question for you, Ron.
Ron? That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you. There's one camp.
So I have a question for you. Were you in military service?
No.
So we spend $286,000 a year on Veteran Service Office, so you're not getting any benefit from that.
Oh, yes, I am. I disagree with you on that.
Okay, so-
That veteran protected my freedom, and because of that military service, I live in a free country. I disagree with you on that rationale.
So there are veterans who use the transit system, and you're talking about a population who cannot drive for whatever reason. So you're talking about eliminating assistance for people with disabilities. And so it's a bigger conversation than just the county residents not getting it. There's actually a subcommittee that's been formed to look at what a more equitable situation is for the cities to pay more and take probably almost all the burden off of county taxpayers. So that's in the works
I
right
haven't
now.
heard of that at all. That's the
It's-
first
it's a
I've heard of
sub-
this.
It's a subcommittee that was started at the last mayor's meeting.
When was this? All right, I remember hearing that at the last meeting.
You know, if I could real quick, it reminds me of a story a long time ago. A roommate of mine was in sales, and the story goes that this person who's a salesperson comes back and they turn in their receipts, and the bookkeeper says, "You can't get reimbursed for the Stetson hat that you bought." He goes, "Well, I got it for a client." She says, "Well, we don't reimburse for that." So he said, "All right," took his receipts back, turned in a new set of receipts and said, "Now find that Stetson hat inside there." All right. And so the point is that that's the way that the grants work with transit. You're just shuffling things around, right? But in the end, it's still a program that the county has its signature on, that it backs. It signs for these grants. It's on the hook for these grants. It takes on the liability for these grants, and it's a potato thing right now. Yes, there is less money, taxpayer money, going into that department because it's been going through a bunch of changes. But for it to be zero liability, that will never happen because we use legal resources, we use accounting resources, and those are taxpayer subsidized. So that's ultimately it. And of course, it's the liability. So I think it's interesting because, we have three commissioners up here and we all have different ideas on transit. I agree with exactly what you said, which is that the cost should be borne by those who enjoy the benefit. There are, for all intents and purposes, the transit system does not serve the unincorporated county. It just doesn't.
No, it
There's
doesn't.
two stops that are on Hutter that are on land that wherever that pole was planted happens to be county land, but it's on Hutter. So it's going from Coeur d'Alene, stops at the city of Hutter, and then goes on to Post Falls. And the reality is that I think that, it's something that the cities should take over. I don't understand why the county is in this business. I don't believe it should be in the business.
Well, it's my understanding that Boise doesn't require the counties to provide this service, and the only county in the state of Idaho that runs a bus system is Kootenai. There is no other county that does this. And to me, this looks like a county Doge operation. Opportunity.
Commissioner Eberlein?
I just talked about Ubers a little while ago, and there were people standing up and down that line of and the doors and all over the place. And Brent Regan, we all stood up there and said we can put Ubers in these things, and the bleeding heart liberal whatevers they are happened to said, "Oh, we can't do that." Well, why not? It's a transportation system that's very efficient, and I'm proposing to bring to visit with Woody and go down with my wife possibly to Mexico. They have a very intricate system down there. It probably makes ours look like garbage.
So would the Uber drivers then have vans that could transport?
We don't need transfer. We're not
You're-
looking
you're
at
interrupting
big
me.
things. We're not looking at giant buses. We're looking at a vehicle that seats a few
That has
people.
to be handicap accessible, that has to be able to hold wheelchairs.
Well, don't you think that they do?
Minivans can do that.
Does anyone else want to come down and comment on transit?
Yeah, I'll relinquish my.
Come on. You can ask, come on down, Elise.
Hi, my name is Elise Burton. I am on the Fair Board, but I am here just as a private citizen and just kind of a couple comments, not necessarily any questions, but just wanted to say that the Fair Board is very grateful for the partnership and support of all three commissioners through the long-term MOU that was signed, and we are also committed to making sure that we are doing things transparently, correctly within the law, and without taking taxpayer dollars. So just want to kind of put that out there. The Fair Board meets the second Tuesday of every month at the Fairgrounds at 5 o'clock. They're open meetings. If anyone ever has any questions, the Fair Board is always happy to clear up any rumors from our side of the equation. We exist to educate our community about where their food comes from and the wonderful heritage of the area that we live in. So just a quick unbiased plug, we also have a town hall coming up May 28th, and we're happy to answer any questions or talk to you about what we do and how we do it. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone want to come up and ask a question? See where we stand on a policy?
Hi, I'm Sandy White, and I'm speaking for myself tonight, not for any other organization. I just like, there's a lot of talk going on about the area of impact that's happening right now, and that's something that I've recently become more aware of, that we need to make some decisions in different areas. What are your opinions and thoughts on the area of impact, and could you explain it for the people? Whoever wants
Commissioner
to.
Duncan? Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. So it used to be called Area of City Impact, and that is where the line was drawn, and the cities prior to the new bill last year were able to kind of impose their will on county residents. And so the legislature kind of fixed that and said, if you're in the county, you go by county rules. If you're in the city, you go by city rules. Now, Kootenai County wants a partnership because we don't want to just allow all the development on the city border, then the city wouldn't be able to annex at the property owner's request in the future. So we're working with the cities, which is required by statute, to go redraw those lines. And part of the and this board actually experienced it, was that we had an owner who was being prevented from doing what they wanted to do with their property, and it was a very legitimate low-impact use because they were in the area of city impact, but the city was not going to be able to provide services to this property for 5 to 10 years. Well, state statute now says, if you can't provide within, I think it's 5 years, then you don't get a say in what is developed there. So I think that is a really good guideline going forward. So we're working with all the cities right now to make sure that those boundaries, I think it's now a 2-mile maximum, that they can consider their area of impact, and just kind of have an agreement on both sides that we can live with going forward. So I don't know if that particularly answered your question, but yeah, we've got a couple of them that are going to be coming before us pretty soon, I think, and we'll kind of get better, I think, as we go along. The first couple will be a big learning curve.
All right, well, areas of impact affect people's tax brackets or uses of lands, or
Just kind of the use, it actually opens it up to more uses, because now the city can't impose their restrictions on county land, on property owners within the unincorporated area.
Yeah, and maybe just to add, as far as the partnership goes, one of the things that the county wants to try to avoid is having these little dots of county land sprinkled like pepper inside the city limits, because what you end up with is those particular homes, when they call for 911 service, they need police, the police department doesn't show up, the sheriff's office has to show up. And so the service levels are different. And so having a good partnership helps to eliminate that as well. And that takes a burden off of the county to provide that service, when the reality is it should be in the city.
Okay, thank you very much.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, there's going to be something coming up. I'm going to stick my nose into it because there's transit problems inside the city, and it's wrecking havoc with the transportation.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Is anyone on the phone? Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioners. Brent Regan again. I was just thinking about the open space issue and how that there was an initial proposal was for a $50 million bond to go out and acquire the space and hold it as open space. If you had a significantly smaller bond, you go out and acquire the space and then put the deed restrictions and zoning changes and all the things you wanted to do to change it into the kinds of parcels you wanted for open space, and then sell it. And then you could have this fund that you could cycle through it as you're going through. So, I don't know, just another idea.
Yeah, it didn't require us to take the full 50 million. If we found a parcel for 5 million, we could borrow 5 million, wait 5 years.
But there was a pot of money that you would use to purchase property, and then the bond process would replenish that. And I'm saying that we could have the initial pot of money, and then you could replenish it by selling the properties, which then the new owner would get to pay property tax on. And there would be the kind of restrictions that you would want. And you wouldn't have to go through eminent domain, because at one point you were the owner. And you could put the deed restrictions so it couldn't be incorporated into a city. You could limit, how it was developed. And it's going to be a ranchette. It's going to be that way for the next 100 years. And so it would preserve that. You could fix that in time, I think. I don't know. It might be something you want to investigate.
It's a good idea.
The other issue, since Commissioner Eberlein used my name on this, on the Uber issue, we did look at that pretty extensively, excuse me, about 10 years ago. And at the time, and it hasn't really changed much, an Uber ride is about $10 to $13. You can bring somebody from point A to point B, and instead of having, grandma needs to go to the hospital, instead of going to the bus station and then the other bus station and the hospital and walking across the ice, they'd pick her up at her home and deliver her to where she needed. On the principle of that if you start handing out money to left-handed stuttering midgets, you will have a line of left-handed stuttering midgets going out the door in no time. If you had a requirement for handicap services in Uber, then you would have services that would appear to satisfy that. And the advantage to a system like that is that the municipalities at each end of the ride could then share the costs. Now, I know the downside is that as it's presently set up, you can't get funding grants in order to pay for this kind of a system. That they aren't established for that yet. But I would imagine that if a system like that were established, that you could certainly convince the funding agencies to go for this new and innovative idea. Things are only impossible until you do them. And so, Kootenai County could be one of the vanguards of new and innovative solution to a much better service for the people that need it, and not clogging up the roads with a bunch of buses that we have to pay for. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Judy Fujimoto. I live in Rathdrum. I have a question about our 911 service. And it triggered when you mentioned it. I have a husband that's disabled, and he's immobile now. He's bedridden. But when he was navigating our home in his power chair, it got all tangled up underneath a rug. A rug got all tangled up underneath. It was an area rug, and he couldn't go forward or backwards or get out of the situation. But he was fine. I was fine. Nobody was bleeding. Nobody was any kind of emergency health, whatever. If he wasn't in the chair, I could have maybe tipped it over and untangled, but he was in the chair, and I was unable to lift him out of the chair or transfer him anywhere because there was nothing nearby to transfer him to, and it just wouldn't have worked. So I didn't know what to do. I needed some manpower, and so I called 911, and I was thinking that they might have something for me where someone could come and help me. And I told them, all about nobody is bleeding, nobody is in any kind of health crisis. I just need manpower. I just need a couple of people to help me lift this chair or tip it or hold on to him while whatever. And they sent everybody, the EMTs, fire truck, and I was thinking, what a waste of resources. I lived somewhere before I moved here that had a 311 number, and that was for non-medical emergencies, for just exactly what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 firemen came one time when I called, and they helped me out of, with that situation. Rather than implementing another number, an option might be, and I know when people call 911, it's a genuine time-sensitive emergency. You don't want to spend a lot of time talking with people, but you could just start with a question, is this a medical emergency? And the person could say no. And then they could say, where would you like me to direct your call? Well, I just need manpower. Something needs to
Yeah, I think part of it is that some of these jurisdictions, it's in their policy to show up for all these calls. Now, it may be, it's not necessary. It may be because it shows this continued growth, and then it becomes a mechanism to seek more funding, to replace vehicles. I don't know.
policy or a tradition?
Well, from my understanding, I've heard that there are some policy issues there, but that's with the various jurisdictions. So, but thank you. Yes.
Can I comment, ma'am? Ma'am?
Ma'am.
Judy. Oh, I'm sorry. My wife passed away, she was like 2.5 years ago. So the EMTs came to the house. We went down a flight of stairs, and we got her out there in the ambulance. And I was so happy that those people were there to take care of her, because she got to live another 12 hours. Mm-hmm. And without that, she would have been dead, and we would have never got to see her again.
Oh,
So
yeah, it's a good thing. I
those
appreciate
guys like to do that stuff, and because
They're very good at what they do.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
And we are very thankful for the EMTs
Yes,
and all the law enforcement and all those people that take care of us.
absolutely. I just don't want to waste the resources.
You won't waste it. If they're so orchestrated that they can go 17 different directions all at one time.
Thank you.
Did you have a question? Come on down.
Good evening. My name is Sandy Duncan. I am a resident and I live in Hayden. My question is for all three, and it is regarding, statute regarding personal development on your own land. Specifically, my husband and I have 10 acres and we are general contractors and we want to move an easement, but the county is requiring us to bond ourselves. We would like to know why. That is a statute. If we are the homeowner and the contractor and the stewards. Why would we have to bond ourselves and name the county as on the bond?
Without knowing your specific situation, I would like to know that too. So probably the best way to deal with that is to have you provide your contact information.
We're dealing with the community planning department.
I understand that.
Yeah. And we
But
have
provide
an
it with Sarah over here, and we can take a look and try to get an answer for you.
That would be great. We would appreciate it.
Because I don't
And
think anyone.
sometimes having a commissioner with you and pointing questions at certain people, that can help too.
Well,
I've seen that more than once.
we definitely would appreciate that because that adds another $10,000 to our
Yeah,
project. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
thank you. Any other questions, comments? There was no one earlier, but is there anyone on the phone now? No. Well, this is the next step in the meeting agenda, and that is to ask for public comment. So I trust that
Thanks
I
a
will
lot,
not,
Bruce.
I will not be hearing from anyone at this point, but I do want to thank you for coming out. I want to thank those who watched online. And look, you're the shareholders in this community. It's your community, so thanks for participating. Have a good night. 7:46, meeting adjourned.